Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Leica Podcast. I'm your host, Jack Devanna, and I am so pleased to have Gajan Balan joining me here today. Gajan, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited to have you on. We were just talking about how we have all these great conversations, so now we've decided to record it.
And look at this. Look at this setup. I mean, this
Not
is incredible.
bad,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Thank you for having me, man.
Absolutely, man. So would love to start off. I know you were just telling me you've traveled around the world twice since we last saw each other. Tell me a little bit about some of these projects that have taken you all over the world. And I know that we're trying to get to 50,000 miles here.
Yeah. I'm trying to get status for next year, so a few more trips planned. It's been great, man. My work has taken me to Europe, being able to go to the Arctic Circle, earlier last year, but also this year again into West Greenland, which was fun. The Leica 100 celebration in Wetzlar.
Germany.
Then going to Tokyo for a quick trip, going out to LA for an academy that we did there. We got our Video for Photographers Academy off the ground.
Nice.
So huge shout out to the Leica Academy team and the Leica USA team for making that happen. Going to Italy for the MEV1 preview, which then got announced. That was exciting.
That was a lot of fun.
Hosted a workshop experience out in India, as well as just my own documentary photography out there. Nice. Going down to Mexico City for the Day of the Dead and meeting with the Leica family there, which was great, in the community there. And then, just a quick trip to New York to rack up a few more miles and hit status. But it's been an incredible privilege this year to just travel with my camera and just meet so many incredible people.
Amazing. Yeah, it's been amazing to see where you've been traveling and be able to follow along and see the work that you're creating. And I think this is a really good segue. So we hear about where you are now as a creative, but I'd love to ask you to take us back to the beginning of your journey. Where was the moment where you knew that photography was something that you really wanted to pursue?
Yeah, I think, I've talked about this before, but there was always this love for photography. But the moment that it really became this thing where I want to make it the main thing, like I want to just forget all other stuff I was trying to do and really build a lifestyle around photography and creativity of some kind, was probably in third year university. I was doing a pre-med program. Some would say maybe I'm genetically predisposed to be good at, studying higher education. That's definitely what my parents thought. And I just realized I don't want to touch people for a living. And I did some soul searching, and I realized I just kind of want to take pictures. Yeah. It would take a few more years for me to sort of refine that into a process where, more than anything, a purpose. And that's to just travel the world and tell compelling stories. And for me, it was just this thing that I realized that if I was going to struggle and fail and sweat, I'd rather do it for something that I genuinely had a love for.
Yeah.
I'd rather go broke doing something I love as opposed to being maybe financially successful, but not emotionally satisfied. This was all around 2009 to about 2014. It's sort of like this figuring out period where I would pick up the camera, just try to shoot everything I could, learn, take workshops, take online classes, read books, study photo books, and really start to develop some sort of taste. But then there was this one moment in my life where I kind of fell out of love with photography. I tried to force it into this commercial thing and make it a living. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of photographers and maybe creatives in general do this. They have something they love, they try to turn it into a business, and then they realize, I'm kind of falling out of love with this, and maybe it becomes painful. Stepped away from photography, sold all my gear, and with the birth of my first son, this was 2016, I decided to pick up the camera again just to document that moment in my life. And I realized, this is what I want to do. Yeah. Not photograph children, but photograph things that I genuinely have this affinity for. Tell stories that meant something to me. And I just sort of pulled on that thread. And while I was doing that, I realized that there was this overwhelming need for video and video-based stories. Yeah. It was too late for me to go back to film school or even photography school for that matter. So I decided to open up a YouTube channel and explore that as a means to get better at video production. The goal was never to become a full-time YouTuber or an influencer or any of that kind of stuff. For me, it was about having this gym that I can participate in and show up in to understand how video production works and get better at it, and then eventually get to a place where I can use that for my storytelling. And so you kind of fast forward that, compound that over the years, and me just kind of pulling on threads, meeting interesting people, finding out what are the bodies and lenses that best lean into the storytelling that I enjoy, and kind of end up here, And it all starts from really just being honest with myself of what did I want to do for a living and why.
Yeah. And it's interesting how we kind of go into this video and film side of things, because you said you created this YouTube channel to just kind of get your reps in. Would you say that was really just continued pursuit of that craft, where getting those reps in is what taught you kind of what you know about video now, or were you using other tools to help guide you through this as well?
It was an interesting mix, but it all started from the same sort of place. Like even the photography, I wanted to become a really good photographer with respect to my portrait work and also street and documentary. So I would pursue that, and to sort of elevate the stakes and even increase the ROI, I guess, on that, I would find ways to document that experience. So bringing on assistants, bringing on friends, and even collaborators to, capture me in the moment telling those stories, and then going back, looking at the footage and contextualizing what I was shooting, whether it was reviews or tutorials. And through that process, it sort of naturally puts me on this path of getting better faster. You know what I mean? When you take out the sort of judgment of like, oh, this video doesn't look as good, or it's not where I want it to be, and you just focus on getting a little bit better every single time, and you say discipline to that, you get to this place eventually where you can create really compelling work, and my first early videos they're hidden off of YouTube. But it's not a journey that I'm ashamed of. I think for me and for others, you can only take the journey that you can take. If you try to force yourself onto someone else's journey or someone else's blueprint, you can't expect the same results. That's one. But two, you might strip away what makes you you. And I think for me, having to go that route where I had to also deal with my ego of being perceived as just a YouTuber, you know what I mean? Like going through that dialogue, while still staying focused on getting better and being proficient and being taken seriously as a professional. Like those are things that are unique to my journey and now have given me this sort of unfair advantage. Being able to navigate that has been something I find very special and very fulfilling. So it's not really answering your question, but for people that are listening, I think it comes back to finding out this process that's conducive for you to keep showing up. That's the most important thing.
I think that's a perfect answer. I mean, a lot of times people end up just seeing the finished product. So they think, wow, they're creating this beautiful stuff, but nobody sees all the reps and the effort that actually went into getting to that point where all of this process made you who you are, informed your vision, and led to this beautiful piece that's been released. And inadvertently referring to the piece you did for the SL3S. It was gorgeous. One of my favorite videos that has ever been produced by Leica. So it's incredible to see that finished product, but to hear more about what you went through is, I think, important for our audience as well, to know that you have to put the work in to get there. And on that note, you've said that if it was easy to be a creative, everybody would be doing it. So I'd love to talk about what some of the most significant obstacles are.
You've done your research.
I tried to do. Okay. I go down the little rabbit holes. I gotta know. I gotta know my person before they come in. But so you said this. If it was easy, everyone would be doing it. So I'd love to hear about some of these obstacles that you faced that you felt were most significant to you in your development, and how did you overcome them?
I feel like this is going to be tangent corner because I got to give you a bunch of stuff. But I think one of the simplest and easiest things that I think many creatives can relate to is just how your family perceives you pursuing the arts. Right. And there's some people that have the luxury and privilege of having supporting parents that like want you to do whatever you want to do and follow that. But there's some people out there that don't have that. There's expectations of them. They might be a first generation immigrant that's coming over and maybe the first one that's going to be going to post-secondary education or graduate education. And there's like this friction naturally there. And there might be some people that just find that hard to navigate. This is a bit of a strong opinion. At least for me, it doesn't feel so. But I will say, if that is a point of contention for you becoming an artist, then you should probably quit. If you can't overcome the the friction of your own family,
Yeah.
how they perceive the arts, how you are navigating this and looking to make this a living. If that's something that's causing you to kind of be half in, half out, not fully commit, not really put in the work that it deserves, then it's probably not for you. You know, for this lifestyle, for what you're hoping to achieve, if you're the kind of person that wants to not only create ambitious, insane, crazy, wild stories, right? Whatever that may be, you need to have this sort of perseverance that is going to be able to deal with all kinds of curveballs. And the first stop might be just within the four walls of your home.
Yeah.
So if you can't overcome that, then this is probably not for you, because it's only going to get harder. The other thing is, like, in this day and age with social media, there's sort of this social expectation that everyone supports you and supports your artwork as soon as you put it out there. And I'm sorry, that's just not the case.
Yeah.
Like, you shouldn't expect your friends to like every post, to comment on everything, to share it and all that kind of stuff. That's not an expectation. That is a privilege. That is a bonus. That's an ancillary thing that happens for creating great work. Being able to focus on creating the most compelling stories, your best stories, iterating over time, bridging that gap between your taste, the famous Ira Glass thing, your taste and what you're producing. Like, that should be the focus, right? More than anything. I think the challenge is that a lot of people, regardless of whether it's the art or something else, they're so results oriented. They see what is being published, being shared, being celebrated, and they aspire for that. And for me, it's never been that. For me, what it's always been about is aspiring to have a process, a workflow, a day-to-day that I would enjoy. And for me, there's nothing more enjoyable than being able to wake up, pick up my camera, and work hard with it, to chase a story, to frame something incredibly compelling. I much more enjoy the process of that than everything else, right? And I think when I say if creativity was easy, everybody would be doing it, you know, that is to say that this is for people that enjoy this kind of suffering.
Yeah.
You know, this is not brain surgery. This is not Doctors Without Borders. Like, what we're doing, relatively speaking, for most people, you know, outside of reportage perhaps, is not crazy difficult work that's putting our lives in danger or fundamentally changing the world. But in some beautiful ways, it kind of is, you know, and to do it at the best level, to do it at, you know, we're talking about the 1%, where you're creating meaningful stories that can change people's lives, that put you in rooms that are, you know, it's really hard to get to, that are, and in a lot of ways, representing a community. To do that takes a lot of hard work, a lot of intention, and just this unrelenting spirit that no matter what, you're going to keep showing up.
Yeah.
And this is what I try to weed out when I'm looking to partner with someone, work with someone, even to some degrees teach someone. Yeah. Right? Is if you can't show up for your dreams, how are you going to show up for anyone else's? Yeah. And you look at a brand like Leica, they do a great job of finding people like this. You know, they want to find people that are showing up for their dreams and pushing the boundaries, because those are the people that kind of show up and represent what Leica really is about. Yeah. And in a lot of ways, going against the grain. Yeah.
I think that was beautifully said. And I wonder as well, in your journey when you were fully committing to pursuing the arts, pursuing creativity, was there a moment, have you always been of this mindset where it's discipline, patience, or was that something where you had to really commit to that when you knew that this was something that you wanted to pursue?
I think I always had this this interesting left-right brain relationship where I was always the kid that was sketching on the side of my notepad and painting and doing all this kind of stuff. But at the same time, like, you know, the sort of core subjects, math, physics, literacy, all that, it kind of came easy to me. Yeah. So I would do my work early, finish that, and then go and draw and do all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And I see those tentacles kind of growing into my, you know, where I'm at now. It's always been this idea of like exploring the creative side of it and then finding efficiencies and discipline and strategies to kind of bring that to the best version of it as possible. And it's, for me, that's what the art demands.
Yeah.
I think to create compelling stories, meaningful stories, and I think at a very basic level, fulfilling stories for me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care what other people think about my photography or my filmmaking as an aggregate.
Yeah.
I think it's special when people say nice things. I think it's okay when people don't like it. That's totally fine, because at the base, for me, it's incredibly fulfilling. And I think that happens with process, with like a lot of intention going behind the storytelling. If I were just going around capturing these shock factor photos on the streets and there wasn't really sort of this story and discipline behind it, I don't think I would be as fulfilled. But having built this thing where I'm showing up for myself, where I'm constantly trying to learn, constantly trying to improve, also looking to educate others, teach people, like all of that culminates into this, I guess, jambalaya, right? That tastes really good when it lands. You know, when I have a photograph that I'm very proud of, that's because of everything that went into it, however big or small that might be. And it's something that I champion a lot. We just finished up a 2-day workshop in Toronto, and the first day is a lot of theory and process. You know, we don't get to pick up or touch a camera for that first day. And it's really about educating the students that, you know, great work demands an even greater effort. But beyond the results that you get from it, when you do that, when you make that a process, it starts to feel incredibly fulfilling when you have that final result. When you had to solve a very unique problem to get that image, when you had to collaborate with a team of people to get the message across, it makes that thing feel that much more special, right? So it's very important for me to sort of have this disciplined approach. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things that go into it, and we can kind of go down the rabbit hole of all that kind of stuff. But quite simply, it makes it more enjoyable when you look at your final image or your final cut and you know how much went into it.
Yeah. I think this is a really good segue into another piece that you talked about, more so a concept. I'm going to butcher this, so I apologize to the audience here. Mise-en-place.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Yeah. It's in the culinary world, right? Mise-en-place, it's this idea. If you watch The Bear or Burnt or any of these kind of like kitchen-oriented dramas, it's this idea that, you know, before you start, before you finish, like everything has a place to be. You know, when you wrap up at the end of your shift, the end of the day, or in between service, that you are cleaning up after yourself, you're scrubbing everything down, you're labeling things, you're putting the fresh ingredients where they're supposed to be, you're setting up the entire space for success, for the next shift, for the next person, for the next day, whatever it may be. And in a lot of ways, when I learned about this, it resonated with a lot of cultural elements that I grew up with. You know, in Tamil culture, you know, this idea of God and divinity, like it transcends sort of the conscious being. You know, for us, the home can be this, you know, godly figure. It could be the book. It could be the notepad. You just had this reverence for the space around you. You know, if you walked and if you stepped on a book, or if your feet touched something that it shouldn't have, you would touch it and bring it to your heart, almost like a little like sorry, like a prayer kind of thing. And it was just this idea of like showing respect for what's around you, right? That together culminated into this theory I have that I now bring into photography, is just having respect for the craft in a regard that how you organize your memory cards, how you put away your gear at the end of your shoot, how you pack your gear for the next day, how you treat everything, you know, with respect to the photographic process, deserves respect.
Yeah.
You know, it's not enough to just show up and shoot and be good at it. How you do anything is how you do everything. I firmly believe that. I won't say I'm perfect at it, but I'm pretty damn good when it comes to my work. And I try my best to just make sure that everything is organized and disciplined, and it's just done in a way that is showing the utmost respect to what I'm creating. And I believe there's a osmosis that happens into the work because of that. You know, so I'll give you a great example. When we go up to Greenland and we get on our ship and we're going to be exploring this region, the first thing I'm doing, I'm spending a good hour, 2 hours just setting up our working station, setting up the charging station, making sure all the lenses are organized, all the gear is organized. We have our SSDs all set up. There's a process and a theory. It's communicated to the person I'm traveling with, my cinematographer that I flew out with. And there's just I should say this, we mitigate the margin for error.
Yeah.
Right? So obviously there's a production benefit because of that. But at a very simple level, it's about respect.
Yeah.
We talked about this. You want to create great work, you want to create great stories. Well, do everything you possibly could, everything that you have control over, leave no stone unturned, do it so that you're set up for success.
Yeah.
So that when I wake up, I don't have to guess if we offloaded the footage. I don't have to guess if we've backed up yesterday's footage. I don't have to worry if things are being organized or if the timeline's being edited or where the last charged battery is or if the lenses are clean. No, everything is being taken care of as soon as it's possible. Yeah. So that means when we go out and we shoot and we come back, before we go and have our meals or do anything, we're cleaning, we're organizing, we're charging, we're offload, we're doing all that stuff because that's part of the story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if I can stretch this analogy, someone that's doing weddings, I many years ago did weddings and now swore against it because it's not for what I do. It's this idea that the wedding doesn't end when the dance floor is over.
Yeah.
The wedding for us would end at 3 or 4 in the morning, perhaps, when we get back, organize everything, put the memory cards to offload, created a double backup, everything was cleaned, and everything was set up as if we were going to go shoot again the next day.
Yeah.
Right? So when I talk about mise-en-place with respect to photography and just the creative process, it's that. It's showing respect for the entire process, everything that's involved in creating the image so that you're naturally just being set up for success.
Yeah. And does this apply not only across the work that you're doing for commercial or anything like that, but also in your own personal photography as well? And do you find that leaves more room for you to be creative without having to have those worries that are controllable, if that makes sense?
You're kind of answering the question, yeah. Because, when I take the time, for example, we're flying out for another project, but when I take the time to make sure that everything is set up, everything is taken care of, and I have my sort of checks and balances, and I'm using, technology on my phone to make sure to remind me, to make sure I'm going through this process. And so when I check it off, it is done and I can stop thinking about it. That means I stop thinking about it, right? That means I get to focus on the story that's about to be captured and created, right? It applies to everything. So it's not that I only do this strategy or have this approach for commercial work or the work that I'm being paid for. Even the work that is just personal to me goes through this because, again, it's about respect for the craft.
You also speak about adhering to key principles. What are the set of key principles that you apply to your creativity that are non-negotiables, essentially?
Yeah, I think broader, it's just 4 values that I have. Principles is a great word. I think pillars is another thing. For me, it's purpose, integrity, creativity, and knowledge. Purpose is my way of deciding whether or not I pursue something. I have this larger, more overarching purpose in my life, which is to travel the world and tell compelling stories that are authentic and honoring the culture from which I'm from. Yeah. And the hope is in doing that, I not only create my best work, but can inspire another generation of people to do the same with respect to their culture. So everything that I approach, I look at, does this line up with my purpose or not? And if it doesn't, then I'm not going to do it. Yeah. Even this podcast is a question I ask, does this line up long term? It's why I don't really do a lot of interviews or podcasts, is because most of the time it doesn't. It doesn't actually serve my purpose. And so I get to say no. Yeah. So having that makes it easy for me to decide where I show up and where I don't. Integrity is pretty self-explanatory, right? Just doing and agreeing and being a person that is honorable, that, shows up for the people that show up for each other, and, just making sure that I'm not out of alignment with the words that I'm saying, the actions that I'm doing, and who I am as a human, right? It's a way of keeping myself honest. Always reflecting back is am I acting with integrity? Am I behaving with integrity, right? Am I creating with integrity with respect to the camera? Creativity is this or, relates earlier to what we spoke about. But it's this idea that for me, while I might create in a very visual medium with photography and filmmaking, it's more about being a good artist and being present and exploring different art forms and connecting with other creatives. It's this idea of like, I guess quite simply, not being a pretentious
Fair.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It kind of sucks to be the sort of brooding artist in the corner that no one can talk to and speaks in 4-syllable words.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and I don't ever want to be that. I want to be someone that creates compelling work, but also was someone that's interested in music and sound design, and then can go to a gallery and observe and contextualize paintings and communicate about that, and is constantly looking to collide with other creatives and sort of just absorb whatever they have to offer, For me, that's what creativity represents. And the last one is knowledge. I am someone that constantly walks around with a student mentality. I don't care how many years of experience I have relative to whoever I'm talking to. I'm always looking to learn. I'm always looking to ask open-ended questions. I'm always looking to, if my time is available, like take a workshop, take an online course. Even now, like I really don't care where someone's overall competency may lie. If they are doing something interesting, if they're creating something meaningful, and I feel like there might be a chance of picking up a little nugget of information, I'm going to pursue that, because I know what it meant for my journey when I picked those up over the years. And there's been moments in my life where there was just like one small thing I learned, and it changed so much for me in a profound way that I always want to keep that door open. So it's to walk around with the student mentality, never feel like I know all the answers, always be open to be challenged as much as possible. I don't know if my partner, my wife, if she'll agree, but I'm trying my best. But it's just this idea, man, there's like, you just never stop learning, stop learning. And I think that's, from my sort of kinesiology days, it has been proven to keep your mind sharp in that regard. If you're constantly seeking knowledge, trying new things, doing new things, exploring new things, it's a pretty good way to keep your mind sharp as well.
Yeah. And I think it's just a good outlook on life, always being curious. It makes it more interesting. Do you find that when you picked up photography, you became more curious, or maybe started paying attention more? Or was that always kind of a muscle that you had, and then maybe photography just amplified that?
I think more than anything, it's when I started pursuing stories with the camera, it put me in a position to naturally investigate. And then as I started like getting that feedback loop of learning things, investigating, learning things, investigating, learning things, I start to realize that compound effect it would have over time, over my process and my work, and really just my approach to life. At first I would pick up my camera, pick up my lens, and go photograph an athlete and sort of just build a relationship. Like that's kind of my style. Is like before we start shooting, just ask a few questions, learn about their journey, their origin, what motivates them, all that kind of stuff. And then we start shooting, right? And then I start to integrate it more into some of the storytelling things that I was pursuing. And I just realized one, this feels good. Just to like relate to someone and have these great conversations. But then as you learn things and you learn strategies and you learn tactics, or maybe you're sitting down with a CEO and he starts to give you like these little nuggets of wisdom, like, oh, that's kind of great. Like I can take that and sort of apply it to this problem that I'm trying to solve. So I think naturally, I was predisposed to be a curious person. But I think it's that process and pursuing it like with a lot of intention is what lined me up to where I am right now. Because I don't think a lot of people are just kind of like this. You know what I mean? I've met many street and documentary photographers that I think would benefit for being more curious, right? Really slowing down, looking to investigate, talking to people, talking to strangers, really getting a story and kind of seeing where that goes, right? I don't know if it's as common as it should be.
Yeah, I feel like there's some fear with some people with trying to connect with people either while photographing them or being in that kind of scenario. Did you ever struggle with that, or is that also a muscle that you had to build, or were you always able to kind of connect with people on that kind of level?
Yeah, it was. Yes, I don't know. Anyone that knows me probably won't believe this, but I was a bit of an introvert when I was a kid.
I don't believe it.
No one believes it. And I sort of had to learn to become an extrovert. And I quickly realized like, the benefits it's afforded when you can be an extrovert.
Yeah.
Not in a malicious way, but just in an intentional way. When you can speak for yourself and speak to your values, like you might get a better job, you might get a raise, you might get better opportunities, all that kind of stuff, right? With respect to photography, it was challenging at first because, I was just sort of pursuing this frame and not really focusing on why, right? I was just seeing great photography and I wanted to create great photography and I just tried to like shortcut that.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I realized that I had to be a little bit more mindful of that gap and in a lot of ways just not being with respect to street photography.
Yeah.
There's times when I go in and you could just take the photo. You don't really have time for that human connection.
Yeah.
But to create the stories that I was hoping to create, to get to the places I want to go, and even, aspire to doing the things that the legends of the past have been doing, I realized like I needed to be a present creative. I need to be a bit more in the story sometimes. And so it came back to just looking at my process and talking to other great photographers and some great contemporaries. And I realized like, oh, I should be asking myself, why do I want to take this photo before I even take the photo? So that when I go to a stranger, I have this information ready at hand. So suddenly I was, first I should say, taking a step back, I was in this place where I didn't know why I was taking the photo. I just thought it was a good photo. So I would go take the photo and that would make for awkward encounters sometimes. And sometimes I'd get a little nervous because like, I don't really know why I'm taking the photo. I just think it's cool. You know what I mean? And like, how am I going to react if someone gets mad at me? Well, I shifted that to know, at least at some sort of basic level, what was interesting to me, what caught my eye. Was it the color, the texture, the scene, something that they were wearing, their facial expression, like knowing a little bit, and then just pursuing the story, pursuing the image relentlessly. And should anything happen, at least I will let them know why.
Yeah.
Right? So chase that. And what I start to realize is that most people don't have any issue with you taking their photograph.
Yeah.
A lot of people, especially around the world, are just happy that you noticed them to begin with. We're talking about people that work their jobs, show up and go home and often are ignored in what they do.
Yeah.
So the fact that you simply showed up and recognized them as a human is a big deal. To take it further, if I go in and take the frame and take the photo I was looking for and kind of interact with them a little bit and just work the scene, but then put my camera down and sat and talked to them, it made for something so fulfilling for both of us. Getting their number on WhatsApp to send them the image, it just was a great way to close the loop. So as best as possible doing that. It was a process that I had to learn. Coming back to the original question, this idea of like developing the courage to go and talk to people, like it takes practice, it takes intention. It's not going to come easy to everybody. So there's some people that can just do it naturally. Yeah. There's some people that, I think most people, that just have to work at it. But at a very basic level, me as a person identifying what it is about this subject, this frame is interesting, bringing that up to the surface, going after the frame that I want, and then putting my camera down and having this dialogue, it's just been reinforced time and time again. Like those neural pathways have just been conditioned to just approach photography in that regard. And it benefits a lot of things even beyond photography for me.
Has there been one connection that stood out to you in one of those moments that kind of sticks with you? I'm sure there's a lot, but just the one that sticks out most to you, for whatever reason that might be.
Yeah, it's so hard to pick one because as you ask that question, I see so many faces of people that I still remember and interactions I still remember. There was a recent one. I don't even know if I published this image, but there was back in 2022, I was in this market in southern India in Chennai. And she's like the roasted peanuts, like a street vendor, kind of like roasting them and selling them on the street. And I remember just going up and just, framing a little photo, taking the photo. It was an okay photo, but it was more about just like the lighting behind her. And she just kind of did like a little smile, but just kind of kept working. So I'm like, okay, she doesn't want to have a whole conversation. It's just before sunset. It's kind of busy in the street. So I just took my photo, smiled, walked away. And then I've been to India, I go there twice a year, for months at a time. And I remember going back to say that I never saw her. Like I just didn't see her in her usual spot. I haven't seen her. Well, this year I went in February and I was walking on another street and I saw her from like a block away. I'm like, oh my God, that's that's the person. Like that, she's the person I first photographed. And we're talking about someone I photographed when I had just transitioned to the Leica M11, my digital rangefinder. I had just picked up my sort of like dream lens, the 35 Summilux.
Yep.
And this was 2 weeks before my first trip to Wetzlar for the factory tour and the celebration of photography. So like that photograph of her happened at a very, young but influential time in my sort of photography career.
Yeah.
So here I am in 2025, just after the Leica SL3S campaign,
Wow.
Having done some incredible worked with incredible people, and just feeling a little bit more proficient as a photographer and storyteller.
Yeah.
And it just, in a beautiful way, was like she was there before it all happened, and now I get to see her again after, it all happened in a weird way.
Full circle.
So it was just kind of special to go back to her, to pull up that photo. She had no idea who I was, obviously. And show her the photo, and we had a bit of an interaction. She introduced me to her kids that were around, and I took another photo of her. And, these are not photos that are going to be really shared or in a book or in a gallery, but they're just so special to me, and it just like helps to reinforce like everything. Being able to just be an observer and traveling and meeting and having those moments of serendipity, it's just a cool thing. I don't know if we're allowed to swear on this, but yeah, man. I mean, anytime I get a question like that or a prompt like that, there's like dozens of faces that just pop through my mind.
Yeah.
And it's just like whichever one I want to pull out in that moment. And so you asked, and I think that one was just a very special one that I still think about.
It's really cool that just through photographing a person, they stick with you. It almost immortalizes them as a moment for you in your journey.
Yeah.
And then it's a moment for them as well. I think that's a really powerful thing. I always think of photography as a great connector. A lot of times people think it may separate the people, but if you take the opportunity to actually put the camera down and have a conversation with someone, you never know where it might lead. So I think that's really special, especially in that full circle kind of moment that happened there. It's just incredible that that happened at that time in your life.
Yeah. And it's, again, and it's hard to explain to people, and especially if you are results oriented, it's even harder. It's that much harder to absorb that information, that lesson, right? But again, if you sort of like focus on process, the experience, and aligning yourself to a disciplined approach to creating great work, that is what you look forward to, the sort of Kobe Bryant mentality where, it's not about the championships or the trophies. It's showing up at 5 a.m. in the gym and doing 10,000 free throws, falling in love with that. It makes all of it so much more fulfilling.
I was reading one of your posts, and it was a really great take. You said that as humans, we have this innate fear of being lost. Can you tell me about a time where you felt lost, but in hindsight, looking back at where you are now, you were really just on the right path to where you were going?
Yeah, man, there's so many of them. I think it was around 2013 where there were so many things happening. This is about 9 months before I'm marrying the love of my life. I'm working a job that I don't really enjoy. I'm hustling every evening and weekend to work on creative work, trying to make it in, and, trying to win a lottery ticket, really, with respect to creative work. Having this sort of like contentious relationship with family members. There's just so much going on. I remember just getting to a point where I'm just like, I don't know what to do. And I feel like I should just quit everything, just find a corporate job and just like pursue that sort of like traditional, 9-to-5 lifestyle. You work Monday to Friday, you look forward to the weekends, you have a family, and just do like, it was that close.
Yeah.
It was that close. And I think what really got me through it was sort of, one, just having an incredible partner to talk to. So for anyone, that might be listening to this, is like talk through those emotions, whether it's a family member or a professional, whatever it may be, like having someone to talk to is incredibly valuable. the second thing I realized is just like, well, what if? Like, what if? Right?
Yeah.
And I know that even at times that people might think they're too old or it's too late or they didn't go to school for it or they didn't study it or there's so many people better. Cool. But what if this does work out?
Yeah.
What if you end up shooting something you absolutely love or creating something you absolutely love? What if, you give yourself to this thing that you love so dearly and you only gave it your love and affection and time? What if, you did that? And that's sort of what started this internal dialogue. And that helped me kind of separate myself from the results of everything. That photography or even filming, whatever it owed me something, that I want this or I wanted an award. Like it helped me sort of rip that idea away from it and focus more on process, right? And I think that's why it influences so much of even the workshops that I do and my style of it. Usually a good amount of my workshops and teaching starts with asking ourselves why, asking ourselves what is the purpose, asking ourselves what our values are, how do we set goals and milestones for ourselves, and understanding that goals and milestones are the byproduct of a fulfilling journey, that they are not the destination, right? Having what I feel like is this long journey to learn these lessons and realizing the value around it, I now kind of integrate that into everything that I teach and what I work with when I work with students. So, I think everyone feels that. I think it's just human nature.
Yeah.
I think what makes us uniquely human is our ability to question our environment and question nature and ask why. I think that's what makes us unique beyond any other species. So this idea of feeling lost is not unique. And in those moments, I think what comes down to is like, all right, well, what if you did this, right? And then being really honest with yourself and confronting your ego and asking yourself, is this something you're pursuing for money, for fame, for notoriety? Or is this something much deeper, much more integral to who you are, at the core of your humanity?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Those difficult conversations, you'd be surprised what comes out of them and the path that it puts you on.
Yeah, I think that's an incredible piece of advice, and I feel like it also makes you offer a look inward and to spend time with yourself and your thoughts. And in today's age where we have this phone in our pocket that tries to steal all of that from us, it's really important for us to really sit with ourselves and figure out what it is that we want, creatively or just in life in general. I really appreciate that answer. Thank you for sharing that.
Hey, my pleasure, man.
Yeah. I guess on that topic too, in identifying work that has meaning to you, how do you go about finding what projects you want to work on? Is it something that you search for, or does it come to you in a way, or is it a mix maybe of both?
I think it's a mix of both. I'm luckily at a place right now where there's opportunities that do come in, and I go back to my purpose and ask myself, is this something I want to do or something that someone else is better suited for? Like, does this actually align with my sort of long-term purpose in life?
Yeah.
When I'm looking at an opportunity for myself, a lot of it comes down to the energy and opportunity of it all. And it's going to sound a little woo-woo to some people that are listening, but if I can contextualize it a little bit further, is this something in front of me genuinely getting me excited to the point that I would do it for free? And, I'm trying not to do it for free as much as possible, but is it that exciting that I would be so engaged that I would show up even if there wasn't a paycheck or an invoice attached to it?
Yeah.
Right? Great example is this opportunity that I've been working on with this team in Belize and this charity and this shelter that they're working out there. Like, this whole opportunity came from this natural conversation that we're having, and just hearing the story and hearing the impact it had on the community, and like just hearing that had me so genuinely excited that I'm like, cool, I'm gonna find a way to get out there. Like, this is not about making any income or getting any kind of notoriety out of it. I just want to go out there, make myself available in service of this community, and hopefully tell an authentic and compelling story. That's what it boils down to. Does that make me the most profitable and successful creative? Probably not. But again, I have no regrets with the things that I say yes to as a result.
Yeah.
You know? So often the regrets are usually with overextending myself with who I'm collaborating with. And, you know, I'm the kind of person that likes to start with 100% trust.
Yeah.
And then some people might let me down. And I'm
Yeah.
like, damn, like, why didn't I see that? And my blinders, you know, might be on for some of those things. But with respect to projects, I'm very careful with what I say yes to.
Yeah.
And that energy piece, like when I'm hearing of something, when I'm getting an idea for something, is it actually getting me excited at my core? We worked on a short documentary. It's in post now, but I remember being in India and seeing this welfare bus with students that were deaf and blind and was sort of transporting this. I remember seeing that and just being like, wow, like there's such a compelling story there to be explored. And I couldn't shake just like the emotional feeling of seeing this bus of children that, you know, didn't ask for this ailment or, you know, this sort of challenge for their lives. And here they are smiling and laughing and just, you know, going to school.
Yeah.
And it stuck with me. And I'm always like, you'll see me, I'm always taking notes on my phones and ideas and inspiration. I'm always like just ingesting stuff and organizing it later. So I've had this idea. And then over months of research, I found out that there was a school in Sri Lanka, where my family's from, toward the northeast of the island, that's been in operation for 70 years, catering to deaf and blind students. And like about 60% of students live on, you know, on the campus. And so we went into pre-production, we did researching, we reached out to them and all that kind of stuff. And this whole thing happened, you know, as a result of me just genuinely being excited at this story. Yeah. That's something I self-funded, something I'm still self-funding. And, you know, it's not about, you know, what is this going to do for me? Yeah. It's about what can I do for this story? How much of myself can I give to the story? And I don't know. I think that's sort of like an unbeatable approach to things.
Yeah.
When you genuinely love what you're doing, I think you're going to outperform 10 out of 10 anybody else that just doesn't have that same passion for it, especially when you have to speak to the art.
When is this piece coming out? Now I'm really excited to see it.
This is the hardest questions, man. This is the hardest questions. My hope is to have it out in the next year and change.
Fantastic.
Because it is the luxury of a self project. Yeah. I get the luxury of kind of like deciding, okay, maybe I want to go back and do some ADR, maybe you want to shoot some more footage. I want to honor the school, the principal, the teachers there, the students, the alumni. We did like 17 interviews and shot, you know, hundreds of hours of footage. So I want to make sure that they get to see it.
Yeah.
But it's something that I'm not going to rush.
Perfect. Yeah, it's for you.
Yeah.
And to bring this story to light.
Well, it's for the art. It's for the story more than anything. And for me, it's about making sure that we approach it the best way possible.
I just can't wait to see it. So I'm excited for that to come out. You may have just answered this question in a way, but I also wanted to ask, throughout your career, has there been one project that brought you the most fulfillment, or that you really felt like after you stepped away from it, you're like, wow, this was something that was really special?
Oh, man, you know, I'll answer with the project that's completed, right? And that is the Leica SL3S campaign. And I'm not just saying this because we're on the Leica show, the Leica Podcast, the Jack Finds Out podcast.
This is me finding out.
Working title. You know, I get to travel the world and work on a bunch of things. And I'm working on a polar project and a photography project for India and then one in Sri Lanka. But, you know, those are works in progress.
Yeah.
But of the works that I've completed, shipped, delivered, it is the Leica SL3S campaign. And it's not because really it's about me or I had this moment. It's the fact that I had this opportunity to represent an imaging brand, a historic and like really prestigious imaging brand. And as far as I know, the first South Asian to represent as a global ambassador, which is, you know, something I hope is not the last, but also really special. The fact that I had the permission, the blessing to be as authentic to my storytelling as possible, to work with whoever I wanted, to feature whoever I wanted. And in that process, I got to bring this incredible team of people, incredibly talented, selfless, from the assistants, to the producers, to the stylists, to the makeup artists, to the talent, cinematographers, the behind the scenes cinematographers, some of the people that you've met as well, the editors, the colorists, all these people. We went through the trenches together. Yeah. You know, we went to southern India and northern Sri Lanka. We were there for weeks, and we just suffered together. And I told them, like, this is gonna be miserable at times. Like, are you prepared for that? But to look back at it and to have this thing that I'm so proud of, that, I don't know, in a lot of ways, I feel like it's not about me. When I wrote the script, I wrote it first before anything. I wanted to write it in a way where, sure, it could represent me, even though it's my voice that's talking, but it could represent the community. It could represent another creative. It could represent the Leica brand. It could be the voice of the camera speaking. But it was done in this very intentional way to kind of just speak to the creative journey. And to be able to see that from beginning to end with, again, such incredible humans, that is what I am most proud of right now.
I love that. And connection again.
Yeah.
It's about connection at the core of it. And your team is incredible. Met a few of them, been lucky enough too. So you also know how to build a great team.
Yeah.
I would love to ask about that. However, I've just been alerted that we're
you can join the team,
time.
Jack. Is that what the question was?
Opportunities?
Yeah. Do you want to join the team?
If I find myself in Canada, let me know. I like to wrap up on this question. If you had the opportunity to have a conversation with your younger self, what would you say? This can be at any age.
At any age. Oh my God.
Whatever jumps to you.
Yeah. Go back to 8 years old and invest in Bitcoin. I feel like that's everyone's answer, right? I think more than anything, I don't spend a lot of time thinking about that kind of stuff, but it is something that influences me as a father now. And I remember at a young age what it felt like when my parents were so proud of me. And oftentimes it was attached to academic success.
Yeah.
And I can't help, but wonder, like, for my two boys, giving them just this unconditional love in everything that they pursue, encouraging everything that they show interest in, whether it's school, whether it's extracurriculars, whether my oldest, who loves to draw, will just like go through 500 pages, easily, right? I just can't help but wonder what it's like for a child to have that unconditional love, support, encouragement, and even the application of discipline. No, like, you can't just draw. You gotta work hard at it.
Yeah.
I got expectations of your artwork.
Yeah.
That's what excites me the most. So, to answer your hypothetical question, I think for me it would be going back and just showing love and just being super supportive and saying, work hard at everything. Work hard at everything. Be curious, explore different things, try different things. Don't try to decide what you want to be at a young age. Just work hard at anything that you're interested in. It's tricky to sort of prescribe your whole life at such a young age. But I think what remains a constant is how you approach anything, kind of to bring it back to how we started this conversation, right? How you do anything is how you do everything. Being someone, even if you're in your teens, even if you're in your 20s, working incredibly hard at every single thing that you're showing interest in, I don't think that leads you astray. I think you find out what you like and also what you don't like much sooner, what you're willing to show up for. And I think that's ultimately what helps you stand above the crowd, long term.
I think that's a perfect way to end this off. Gajan, thank you so much for joining me. I'm so happy I got to catch you before you fly back. Yeah. It's always such a pleasure to get to sit and chat with you.
Thank you, Jack. This has been fun. And thank you guys for watching. Yeah. Is there an official way to end the show now? What do we do? Do I get to break the fourth wall here? What
do you want to plug anything? Is there anything you got?
Oh, a plug?
Yeah, go for it.
Look, for those of you that follow my journey or want to follow, one is Instagram is easy.
Yeah.
My newsletter is also something I'm really proud of. Beyond the YouTube channel and Instagram, all that kind of stuff. The newsletter, Church and Street. Yeah. it's a place where every other week I just get to share my photography adventure. And I'm talking about, sure, there's some talk about gear, but it's more about process and ideas and themes and showing a photograph and talking about the story behind the photograph. That's what I'm really proud of. So for any of you that are interested, you can go to that and check that out.
And I think you can find that on Substack too.
Yes, on Substack.
Substack. I did a lot of reading on Substack.
There you go. There you go. Thank you, man.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you. Oh, hope to see you soon.
Thank you. Likewise.